Everyone, I hope you guys are doing great. So, I wanted to do an extra video before I do the astrology for the month of March, having to do with this Neptune and Saturn conjunction at 0 degrees in Aries. I don't only want to talk about that, though. I want to talk about the sextile to Pluto. I want to talk about the opposition to the vertex. And I also want to discuss the fact that it is sextiling Uranus, even though it's in an out of bounds sextile until we get to like the end of April, beginning of May. But we're still feeling it now, right? Because of the degrees that these energies are at. And then I want to explain, I get a lot of questions, right, about different things in astrology, and I love it. Please keep sending me emails and doing all of that. But a lot of people don't understand what a sect is, a CCT. What does it mean to be debilitated? What house is the sign debilitated in? Where is it exalted? And all of those things are very important. I'm going to do like a super surface explanation. So for those of you who are very versed in astrology, I apologize. If that section of the video doesn't seem very interesting to you. And if you are very seasoned in astrology, let me know if you want me to go even deeper, right? I am thinking about, doing something like that, going a little deeper. But I'm going to go into shared screen. I know a lot of you don't like when I show the wheel. Um, I kind of have to with this one, I feel like, just so that you understand what I'm referring to. Otherwise, I feel like it just might be a little too abstract. I don't know. But anyway, I'm just gonna, section part of the screen here. Hopefully that is, you guys have a decent visual. Um, so we're really talking a more, look, I live in New York, so I have it queued up to New York here. But the reality is this is where the energies are. We could see here, I have it queued up to begin with our Aries rising friends, but let's just look at Saturn is at 0 degrees, Neptune is at 0 degrees. It is opposing the vertex, which for our Aries rising friends happens to be in the seventh house of partnerships. And we're going to talk about that more when we break out into those, but you're going to see 2 houses away is Pluto, and then 2 houses away ish happens to be Uranus. Uranus is in the last decan. He's at 27 degrees. He's already cusping into Gemini. He's putting on that mercurial outfit of his. He's getting out of that Venusian outfit, right, that he's been in for so long. Hanging out in that Taurus energy, and he's getting ready to rock and roll with Gemini, who is, of course, ruled by Mercury. So we're really feeling this now. So everything that I'm going to explain having to do with these energies is going to be applicable, really rolling out for the next year, guys. Okay. So again, we have the Saturn conjunct Neptune energy in Aries, that sextile to Pluto, sextile to Uranus, opposition to the vertex, which means some door is closing. And it could just simply be, I don't want anyone to freak out about this. It's like, oh my gosh, this is like a big end. The vertex at this point in astrology is a lot more, and not a lot of us fall. There aren't too many of us who actually pay attention to the vertex. I actually think he's very, very helpful and powerful to understand where doors need to close, and they do. And it's like we're not going back there. But it doesn't mean like a relationship has to end or a job has to end or something big like that. It could just simply be that way of being, that way of communicating, that way of thinking, whatever it is in that house, that can't be the dealio anymore, right? Because we're leveling up. Everything is going to be a lot more different. And remember now, sextiles are very cooperative. It opens a door that requires participation. Nothing here just happens. You have to collaborate with it. And guys, as I always say, you could choose to sit on the couch and eat a box of Malamars and watch Netflix and ignore that sextile, whatever might be sextiling in your chart, knocking at the door. You could always choose to ignore it, right? I don't want you to think if I say a sextile and this great thing is going to happen, that you don't need to do anything. It doesn't work like that. Okay. We have to engage with the energy. Okay, very important. So, what I'm going to first do, oh, first of all, I do want to say that I am running a special on one of my readings, your current astrology, the current astrology reading. I am running a special, and you could click on the link in the description box below. I'm only going to be running that for the next month. Okay, so if you've been thinking of working with me and perhaps you're already kind of familiar with your chart, or you don't care to know about your chart, but you just want to know about your current energies. It might be something for you to consider. But you do have to know all of your you have to know obviously your birthday, but you also have to know your time, your exact time of birth for me to do that one as well. Obviously the location of your birth as well. Okay. And if you order a reading, please don't forget to put those in the box that's provided. Okay. All right, so I'm going to go through all of the rising signs, and then and I'm time stamping, and then I'm going to discuss what it means to be, which sect, like a day or a night chart, because that's going to be important. And then I'll break it into explaining all the planets and their exaltations and their debilitations and all that stuff. So anyway, let's get started with our Aries friends. I mean, Aries, listen, this is happening in your house. This is pretty big, right? For you, the first house, the 11th house, the second house, and the third house are all going to be super activated over definitely the next year. How powerfully, it does depend on your own personal chart, but just as the general archetype of Aries rising, this is identity alchemy. So you're going to be blending a different version of yourself, right? There are going to be different ingredients, right, that you're using as you kind of recreate yourself, because you're dissolving, right, this old self-image, and you're building one that is actually sustainable over the long term and feels a lot more authentically you. That fantasy version of who you thought you had to be for that marriage, for that job, for that whatever, fill in the blank, gives way to you now being a lot more, I guess, a lot more clear and a lot more capable and able to create the life that feels a lot more authentically you, right? Carry the life that you really, really want. Now that sextile to Pluto, I mean, just that Saturn, and keep in mind, Saturn and Neptune, again, it's very alchemical. So there's got to be this blending of something new, right? And that's going to be very subjective, depending on what else is going on in your first house. But this sextile that's going on to your 11th house, your networks shift in response to your authenticity. Your friendships shift. Don't be surprised if all of a sudden you're like, um, I feel like I've been saying this to you guys for like about the past year, and incrementally shaking the dead wood off your friendship tree, right? Having to do with your networks, the people that you're involved with. Now, this doesn't necessarily mean a bad thing. It could just mean that you're getting involved in new things, and it's not that you're so much cutting people off, and some of you may be, obviously it depends on what else is in your chart, but you may be bringing in new energy, if that makes sense, where new people are coming in and kind of taking up that space, right? There's a lot of change and transformation here now that a lot of you may be stepping into some sort of leadership role within a group, or it could be a group having to do with a network with work, or it could just be a group of friends. But the key here is that whatever you're moving into, it aligns with your ideals. And that's really important to understand about the 11th house. Now, taking that sextile in the other direction, again, we have this at 27 degrees, the last decan in that second house in Taurus, but we have to understand, according to degrees, it is still within, I'm not even going to say a 10-degree orb, which is what we want to pay attention to. It's less than that. It's like a 3-degree orb. Okay, so it's a pretty tight orb, even though it's in an out of bounds. And I'm sorry if any of these words are confusing you. Just listen to like what it means, right? This relationship is sextile, so income structures can certainly destabilize, but in a way that ends up inviting innovation. And that's very important, because what might feel like a little bit of a squeeze, a little bit of a push, it ends up being a very good thing for you. So you want to think about, if you have a business, changing your pricing models, getting into some sort of anything having to do with digital assets. Excellent. Because remember, the second house has to do with the money that you make from the work that you do, and Uranus rules that pragmatic technology, right? Having to do, so it's not like your computer, but it's the actual technology there. excellent for monetizing any kind of original skill. Now, I'm saying this knowing that in April, Uranus is moving into Gemini, but he's a pretty slow mover. You know, he's a heavy outer planet. So he's still going to be tickling into that last decan of the second house for the rest of the year. So I don't want you to feel like once you get into the third house, this is like all done. It's not. It's going to take about a year for these energies to sort of blend, if that makes sense, meaning second house, third house energies connecting. So we have like money, and then it's going to be blending with third house communication. We have money, third house of teaching. Okay. So third house of money, third house of siblings, extended family, your neighbors, your neighborhood. Some of you might start making money off of something having to do with, something local in your neighborhood, or going into business with a family member can manifest a bunch of different ways. I don't want to make it about that specifically, but those third house energies. Now, when Uranus moves into that third, you become the messenger. Besides the teacher, which I mentioned already, the writer, the podcaster, the sculptor. Right, this becomes part of your identity. It becomes part of third house, your income stream, second house, right? So the strategy that I really want you guys to focus on here is to build a personal brand that can comfortably survive reality checks. Does it make sense? Is this practical and all of that, right? No pie in the sky, anything like that anymore. Thank goodness with that Neptune out of Pisces, it's a lot easier to see things clearly. Not that Neptune's not beautiful in Pisces. He rules Pisces. But in that 12th house of the hidden, behind the scenes, could have been like a little frustrating not being able to manifest what you really wanted to. Okay, guys? So I hope that was helpful. Thank you so much for joining me, and I will see you guys next time. All right, now we're going to go right into our Taurus friends. So Taurus, I'm just going to click this up here. So we have your energy in the rising, and that brings Saturn and Neptune into your 12th house. So for you, especially over the course of the next year, 12th house, which is the house of the hidden, the house behind the scenes, the house of planning, the house of sleep, but the house of creativity as well. Lots of creativity, planning things behind the scenes, very important. Second house is going to be very important because it's activating your Pluto energy, right? And then, of course, we have that Uranus energy is going to be going from your house, and you're going to be like sayonara, right? As it goes into Gemini, because I know it has not been the easiest transit for you guys, but let's just talk about this. I mean, the Saturn and Neptune in the 12th is the end of a very long karmic chapter. And retreat is very, very productive now. And if you want to get into any arenas that bring money that are very 12th house oriented, it could be quite beneficial for you. So that would be anything. The 12th house is the house of the nurse, so the caretaker is very connected to drug rehabs, very connected to prisons, very connected to creativity. It's a very artistic house. It's also the house that rules tarot and crystals and Reiki and meditation. So anything like that. I mean, this could be quite nice. Now we have the sextile to Pluto in the 10th. So this is this behind the scenes spiritual or psychological work that transforms your public direction. There's remember the 10th house is your public direction. It's your most public. It's how people see you. It's career, yes. Public reputation. What are you known as? Are you married? Are you not married? Are you an educator? Are you a lawyer? Like, what do you do? How do people know you? Are you a daughter? Are you a son? Whatever the deal is, there's something that's going to be transforming you, right? But it's very connected to that 12th house energy that I just discussed. Okay. Now we also have it sextiling Uranus, even though it's still, you're like, what do you mean? It's only one house away. You have to look at the degrees. They're at 0 degrees now. And then we have this Uranus, by the way, very powerful, very new. A lot of you are likely feeling this sort of like, I'm ready for something new. And I'm sure you've been feeling that, but it's different. It's like the fire is under your feet to actually go and make it happen, right? That's the thing, okay? Which is great. So we have the sextile to Uranus. It's right now it's in Taurus. So, you're changing visibly. You have a new look. Your health is some sort of adjustments in your health. Having to do with it's just the whole idea of autonomy in your life. And what I mean by that is you feeling like you have agency, you feeling like you're in the right place, you feeling like things are rather aligned, right? Uranus in those, especially in that last decade, but it's going to be going on for the next year, because even when he goes into Gemini, which is going to be in April, he's still going to be so early in the degrees. And in astrology, we really want to pay attention to the 10-degree aura, but especially like 6 to 8 degrees, anything that's still there. So if you don't understand that, just understand that when Uranus goes into Gemini, he's going to be in Gemini for sure, but he's still going to be blending some of that Taurian energy in. Okay, for this next year. So there's going to be a blending of first house, fresh path, new perspective, sense of self, self-autonomy, all of that with the second house of money, second house of your sense of self, self-esteem, your values, your possessions, right? So there's going to be this sort of like shifting here. So in that second house is very connected to health. And the first house is very connected to your physical look. So there could be this new gaining weight, losing weight, getting a new wardrobe. Um, there could be some sort of, especially with Uranus getting ready to go into the second house, because Uranus is very connected to inflammation, and the second house does rule the thyroid. So there could be some sort of like some sort of endocrine issues, thyroid stuff. Second house rules food as well. So Uranus can certainly bring like a sudden sensitivity to food. Maybe you're feeling suddenly very tired, or you break out in a weird little rash, or something like that goes on where you're saying, okay, I really do need to like pull it back. Maybe, take on an anti-inflammatory diet, or maybe, give that a try, or start exercising differently to, like longer cardio to kind of like help alleviate any sort of inflammation. But you do want to be mindful of that. Okay. You do want to be mindful of that for sure. But that you have that 10th house. So this is transforming your spiritual and your psychological work that you're doing here ends up impacting your future direction. So again, it could be through career, but it doesn't have to be. It could just be also like your relationship. It's the status of your marriage, you adopting a new perspective, looking at your relationships through a different aperture, looking at what you're doing with the rest of your life through a different aperture than the one, widening the aperture, I should say, different lens, or the same lens, widening the aperture a little bit, right, is really what I should say. Now that sextile to Uranus, as I said, you're changing visibly. Again, this idea of new look, health situations, all those. And then we have that Uranus going into the second, which is just the inner work, translates somehow, some way for many of you as changing your inner power when it comes to your ability to make money, your self-worth. Something about your self-worth can certainly become monetized. And what I mean by that is you recognizing an element about yourself, something that you're good at. So because it's in the second house, this could be you're responsible. This could be something connected to food or health awareness. This could be something, and because it's Uranus, maybe you're making videos, you have a podcast, so you're becoming, connected to a wider audience, because Uranus rules, Aquarius is a monoruler of Aquarius, which has to do with groups, right? Widening, right? Widening your public reach, being able to get out there, right? So that's really important to understand. Now, it is your strategy here is, to heal privately and lead publicly, right? I mean, because a lot of you are still kind of picking up the pieces of having that Uranus energy go through that house. I don't want you to allow that to pull you down any kind of rabbit hole, or to give up, or like, what's the point? You're going to be healing really for the next year, but you also have so much great energy that wants to be very supportive of you, right? To lead, right? To lead, especially having to do with your own life. Now, It is opposing the vertex in the sixth house, which so sixth house has to do with our health, mental, physical, emotional. It's in the sign of Libra, which is relationships, but it's also connected to money, but also our ability to just feel balanced, right? Because remember, the glyph to Libra is the scales. And who is the landlord of the sixth house but Virgo? Virgo rules our responsibilities, our day-to-day work environment. Again, our health, mental, physical, emotional. And how are we approaching these things each day? And when the vertex is in opposition to something like Saturn and Neptune, it's like, listen, you really do need to look at how it is that you're taking care of your health on the day to day. And I don't only mean by food. I also mean, your mental health. I mean, are you getting enough sleep? Are you exercising? You can't just eat well and not exercise. You can't just sleep well, eat well, and not exercise. You can't exercise and not eat well. Do you know what I'm saying? So it's got to be that kind of real kind of whole body connection there. Okay. Because the vertex is there to say, okay, it's because it's being active. It's going to be activated in this opposition. And so, and you have to understand that. I mean, right here, you could even see Chiron is at 23 degrees, still within, um, 10 degrees in an opposition. You have Sirius here in this opposition. So, something to just be mindful of, right? Having to do with that sixth house. It could also have you recognizing where maybe you allow yourself to be taken advantage of in work and not allowing that to happen anymore, right? It doesn't mean that you have to be big, bold, and loud about it. It doesn't mean that, but it does mean that, have the conversation, right? Depending on obviously what else is going on in your chart. Better to do it behind closed doors. The more private conversations you can have this year, Taurus, honestly, the Taurus rising specifically, the better off you'll be. Okay, my friend. So I hope that was helpful in some way. Thank you so much for hanging out with me. And I'm going to go right into Gemini rising. All right, so Gem, let's just move you up an hour here. Okay, so for you guys, we have the Saturn and Neptune energy going on in the 11th house. The sextile is over to the 9th house, having to do with Pluto, and then the Uranian sextile is going in the other direction. And again, as I said before, you want to, don't get tripped up by the fact that Uranus is in the next house. You want to really look at the degrees. And so we're looking at the 60-degree orb, give or take 3 degrees, right? I mean, it's very there, right? So starting now for sure, especially, again, now that, Uranus is really getting ready to, put on his Geminian outfit with that, mercurial hat and getting out of that, stuck Taurus energy in that 12th house. It's going to feel just so different. And a lot of you are probably feeling it already. But the 11th house, the 9th house, the 12th house, and the first house are going to be pretty significant. I actually really like this for you guys. You only have one angular in there that you have to worry about, which would be the first house of self. So that Saturn and Neptune in the 11th, it does ask you to stop fantasizing about your future and really get real now. Start structuring it. Stop dreaming about it. Stop thinking about it. Stop writing it in a list. Stop talking to people about it. This is like about getting practical with approach. Doesn't mean that you have to do it right away, overnight, right now. In fact, I would recommend waiting until the spring into the summer for launch of anything that you are, thinking about getting into. But you have to get more serious this year than you have in the past. Okay. Now we do have the sextile to Pluto, which obviously we have to address, which is happening here in the 9th house. And your worldview transforms, right? Now you may teach, you may publish, you may relocate. I mean, those are all 9th house things. It's law, legality, local governance, religion, organized or otherwise. It's manifestation of father energy. So your connection to your dad. Now keep in mind, this is in a sextile. So there could be supportive energy here. Something can happen that you experience with father energy that could bring you closer, or that could be healing in some way. There could be some sort of connection to a foreign entity, meaning that sounds so like formal, but like, maybe someone just from another country, or reaching audiences from another country as well, anything like that. And the sextile to Uranus, which is dipping from Taurus into Gemini, I mean, first of all, finishing up in this last decan in the 12th, this is all about radical subconscious breakthroughs. And what this will likely look like for you is you're just going to start seeing and recognizing things about yourself and people in your life that you maybe kind of knew, but now it's going to be so obvious, like glaringly obvious, things that you're recognizing about yourself, especially 12th house things, where you self-sabotage, where you get in your own way, where you give too much, and really have you thinking about, why do I do that? Why do I do that? Am I vulnerable? Do I feel insecure? Do I feel less than? Like, what's going on? Do I just feel like lonely? Do I just want them to like me? What's missing that I feel like I have to do that? And in another way, you might be realizing where you've been a little too much of a tough cookie, in certain areas. So a lot of this can be going on into the spring, but I don't want you to be fooled, because that Uranus energy, even when he goes in to us, Gemini, because I'm a Gemini sun. I'm not a Gemini rising, but into our sign, he's still working with Taurus for most of the year, because we have to respect the orb, right? We pay attention to anything that's 10 degrees on either side. So we won't go 10 degrees, which is right now it's 3 degrees. But we have to understand all the way up to like that 8 degree mark, we're really still going to be feeling that Taurian energy. Okay. And that's going to be throughout this year. I'm trying to just make it about 2026. Okay. Otherwise I'll fall down a rabbit hole, and I just don't know if I'll be able to get out. But the sextile to Uranus in the 12th, again, those breakthroughs are going to be amazing. But then once Uranus goes into the first house, especially for those of you who are Gemini rising, you reemerge entirely new. This is such a year for an identity upgrade because of the sextiles. This is not going to be the story the entire time, all right? But for a good amount of the time, this is what you're going to be feeling here, right? So choose long-term dreams over short-term distractions that might make sense now, that might feel good now. Man, it's like, get rid of the saying just in your vernacular, like, if it feels good, I'm going to do it kind of thing. Bullshit. A lot of times those things that feel good in the moment, they end up not being good for us, right? This is about thinking long term. It's going to be very easy for you to do because you're going to be able to clearly see the goodness and the benefit in doing that. So in that way, I feel like this is going to be really quite good for you, quite good. And there's definitely going to be some changing going on, right? I mean, that vertex during this very powerful energy that we have going on right now, we have to just, take it for what it is. This 11th house is quincunxing your vertex in Scorpio right now, today. It's been for the past couple of hours, so you're really looking at your daily responsibilities, your day-to-day work environment, and you are ready to upgrade. You just don't want to, it's not that you don't appreciate things. It's not that. It's just you're ready for something new, something new that you feel a lot more passionate about, a lot more connected to, that's in your day-to-day. Even if it's just you getting very serious about, maybe getting more serious about how you exercise, you take care of your health. You're really recognizing it's becoming glaringly obvious to you that you maybe need more work-life balance, or, understanding the true meaning of happiness not being, it's not real. Happiness is not we don't feel, I heard it once said, and I don't remember the gentleman's name who said it. It was so well put. It was so well put, where he said, if we take the idea of happiness and satisfaction and we equate it to cooking, like a meal, the smell of the food is happiness, right? But it's not the sustenance from the food. It's not the sitting down and eating it, right? That's satisfaction, that's peace, that's security, that's all of those other things, right? That's true success, right? Is in being able to eat the food and taste the food, not just smell it, right? Because a lot of times people, they say, oh, I feel happy. What are you feeling happy about? About the opportunities coming up. Okay, so you feel excited about the idea of something, about the prospect of something, right? Well, while you're going through it, and if it's manifesting in a very practical, tangible way, it's bringing you more security, or it's bringing you more satisfaction, or it's bringing you peace, or it's feeding your heart in a different way. That's different than happiness, right? Happiness is more the idea of something, right? And that's going to become quite obvious to you guys this year. So that's what I have for you, Jem. I will see you guys next time when we talk about the astrology for next month. All right, guys, take care. Okay, Cancer. So I'm just trucking right through today, a little short on time. Um, so yeah, so Cancer rising. I hope you guys are doing great. So for you, houses 10, 8, 11, and 12 are going to be really important for you this year. So these are very high in your chart, which means it's the southern part of your chart. It's in astrology, it's the opposite. The bottom is the north, the top is the south. So it's the southern part of your chart. And this Saturn and Neptune energies here up in that 10th house is dissolving the experiences that you're currently having right now. You're rebuilding your vocation, you're rebuilding how people see you, because 10th house is also, it's your most public house. It's your public reputation. It's how people know you. Um, it's also 10th house, manifestation of mom energy too, mother energy. So your mother might be going through some changes too. You might, right? And this could be a great thing, right? This could be a great thing because it's an Aries, fresh path, new perspective. Um, I don't want you to always go to the negative, right? This could be a very positive thing as well, because this can certainly manifest as some sort of new career opportunity. 10th house is also like your overall relationship status as well. So some of you might be getting married, some of you might be getting divorced, whatever it is, it's bringing this kind of new beginning or getting very serious in a relationship, something like that. Now we have the sextile to Pluto, as you can see, in your 8th house, which means financial entanglements will shift. Some of you may be going into new financial entanglements. Again, maybe you're getting married and you're blending, or you're getting divorced and you're separating those finances, or maybe you're going into business with somebody, or maybe you're paying off debt, or you're investing in something. 8th house is also the stock market. The 8th house rules mortgages. It rules insurance payouts. It rules inheritance as well. So there's some sort of shift in there, again, having to do with any of that, even a grant of some sort, maybe if you're starting a business. Now, on the other side, we have this sextile to Uranus. And while Uranus is still in Taurus until April, because of his degrees and the position, this is a sextile. Initially, it's an outbound sextile, and that's okay until April. But you're going to be feeling this really starting very much now. Okay, all the way through, really very heavy through the rest of the year. And so here, with the sextile, with that Uranus and the 11th, your friendships could have changed. Your audience could have changed if you have a channel or anything like that. Your network could have changed. There could have been a lot of changes going on in your network and the people that you connect to. And it doesn't necessarily mean, by the way, that you don't know these people anymore. They're not in your life anymore whatsoever. But it is to say that your dynamic with them likely changed in one way or another. Who you collaborate with likely changed. And maybe it was for various reasons, very exalted in there. So, I mean, maybe you got a promotion, or maybe your responsibilities changed, or maybe you are thinking differently about your goals and gains. 11th house's goals and gains. Taurus has to do with your money. Uranus is very connected to your future, very, very future focused. Uranus, very future focused. Jupiter, very future focused. Jupiter's been in your first house. He's retrograde right now until March 10th, but you are really heavy duty thinking about your future, right? For sure, right? And so that is a lot of what is happening for you guys. Now that Uranus going into the 12th, right, in April, is going to be in there for quite a long time, you may step back to really reconsider, to really incubate, right, some sort of new professional identity, some new thought process, something new. There could be something new that's going on in there. Now, let's understand what the 12th house means. The 12th house does rule disease and disease. It does rule very connected to very connected to prayer. Rather than like the structured religion, the veil is very thin between worlds in the 12th house. It's the house of the nurse, of the caretaker. It's the house of the drug rehab or the prison. Anything that's very helpful to us. But it's also the house of it's the house of tarot and Reiki and crystals, anything that's very spiritual, not astrology. Astrology is more eighth house Scorpio. What else? Very deep subconscious energy as well. So you could be, when Uranus goes in there, he's about reform. He's about revolt, but always with the end point of liberation, right? So Uranus in the 12th house, there could be a lot of liberating experiences where you're healing things once and for all in the past. Your Uranus, by the way, in Gemini in the 12th house can have you like at home with the computer, like writing the next best novel or creating some sort of curriculum, creating something behind the scenes that's really helpful for the masses. Anything having to do with technology, anything having to do with that. Again, because Uranus does rule technology, it rules the future, it rules things that are out of the box, very different. I mean, if you're involved in research, it's actually really good placement for you. Anything having to do with medicine, research, doing something but very like low key behind the scenes can certainly be very supported there. Okay. The best strategy though for you guys to be utilizing over the next year is to release any sort of outdated success metrics, right? Where you were like, I have to make this amount of money in order to be successful. I have to do this job in order for me to be successful. I have to have this kind of relationship. I have to have this kind of family. You know what I'm saying? Those ideas that we create for ourselves, release that and let the new come in a lot more of an organic way. This doesn't mean relationships are ending and all of that stuff. It just means that your attachment to having to have things like look or be a certain way is going to comfortably fade away. Do you know what I mean? Just going to comfortably fade away. Now, you do have the vertex right now, just at this reading, the vertex is conjuncting Black Moon Lilith in your fifth house. And I just want to say fifth house has to do with falling in love, love affairs, romance, children, monetizable talents, having your own business, your joy, your happiness. So I'm going to tell you what I like about this, Cancer. Stop getting in your own way. Stop thinking that you have to master something before taking that leap of faith. Stop thinking that you have to be a certain way before getting into that relationship. You are fine the way you are. That's a false narrative. And Vertex is like, no more of that. We're going to be happy. And what does that mean? I don't actually even like the word happy. I don't know if you guys have ever heard my little spiel on this, but I don't want to go into it now, but maybe I'll do a separate video on that. Happiness is an idea. Happiness is, this wonderful idea that we have when we feel secure, when we feel peace, or when we feel real love, right? That's kind of what we call it. But happiness itself is not real. It's kind of like a label that we put on it, right? And so this idea of having things need to be a certain way in order for any of those feelings to happen, it's just going to dissolve and go in another direction because you have some really beautiful new energies coming in. The metrics are changing. Even if your marriage stays the same and you're staying in your job and everything's the same, you're changing. And the metrics by which you're running your life is just going to naturally be adjusted. Okay, my friend. So yeah, just a little something extra for this month. I hope that was helpful, and I'll see you guys next time. Okay, Leo, Leo. All right, so let me cue this up to you. Let's see what's happening for you guys. So we see Saturn and Neptune. Oh, right here. Let's see, what time am I doing this at? I'm at 11:24 right now. This is queued up to be for a couple of hours from now. So depending on when you're listening to this, the moon is going to be transiting. So today at around 3:30, it's going to be a very sensitive time for you in that ninth house when it comes to politics, religion, publishing, marketing, teaching, your belief system, right? These are all ninth house things, but I don't want to get ahead of myself here. But let's just talk about the Saturn and Neptune, right? The sun is in, and then the sun leaves super quick, right? The sun does not hang out. He'll be gone by tomorrow, out of that space, out of that conjunction, right? It'll only last for a few hours. But Saturn and Neptune in the ninth are restructuring your belief system again, the way that you practice religion, um, organized or otherwise, the way you deal with foreign lands, foreign cultures, anyone from a foreign culture. This could also be very connected to a legal situation that you might be in, as it's the house of lawyers, law, legalities, local governance. It's the manifestation of father energy. So there could be some challenges, a little bit, few challenges coming up with father energy. And I don't want to say challenges as in like negative, right? But there can be some, no, because Chiron is in there, Neptune does rule disease and disease, Saturn increases responsibility, it's in Aries, maybe the physical body, maybe dad's going through a little bit of something, or maybe he's having a little bit of confusion having to do with what his next steps are in life, and he's confiding in you. This could certainly be how it's playing out for some of you. Obviously, it does depend on your own chart. These are for the general archetype. But there is this real looking at all of these ninth house areas, again, publishing for many of you, um, editing, marketing, advertising, getting some sort of project out there to the world. There's going to be some restructuring there. Now, in the one direction, as you can see, you have Pluto in the seventh house. So the sextiling to Pluto in the seventh, partnerships become more intense. They become more transformational. Now, this could certainly be a marriage where maybe you're getting divorced, maybe you're getting married, maybe it has nothing to do with that, and you're finally leveling up a relationship, or it has nothing to do with that, and the relationship that ends up getting transformed is between you and a boss or bosses. Maybe it has nothing to do with a boss and bosses, and it's between you and a doctor or a group of doctors. Maybe it's got nothing to do with other people. And the seventh house also does show up as your energetic output at work. So it could mean you doing something very different on the day to day that's forward facing when it comes to your work and what you do for work, right? Because we have a contract to that as well. Seventh house also does rule any individual who we're in any sort of legal entanglement with. And Pluto in that space is very controlling. Very controlling, right? So I just want to give you that heads up. If that ends up being your experience there, but it can be intense. It is transformational. It's not going to, if it's intense, it's not going to stay that way, I promise. Now, the other direction, we have this Uranian sextile. And so this is important to understand as well, both in the 10th house as well as the 11th. So in the 10th, we're talking about like a career pivot, and it's likely in some sort of tech-driven direction. So you're doing something else online. Maybe you're getting a new job online, or you're becoming an online creator, or you're doing something that has you working through the internet. It could also be working in some sort of advances in technology, if not like on the computer, it could be within the field of technology, but it could also be advances in science and medicine. Anything having to do with addressing the masses out in the world, large body of people. It could be any of those things, right? But there's some sort of pivot. And even though Uranus is going into Gemini in April and will be fully in there by the end of April, beginning of May, we're still going to be dealing with him in the early degrees. So I don't want you to think that the second Uranus goes into Gemini, it's like no more Taurus. you know, no more 10th house. You have the next year to actually finish manifesting that Uranian energy in the 10th house because of the degrees that it's going to be hanging out in. So it's that's completely important to remember. But once he does go into the 11th house, which is really going to be very prevalent in that mix, are these new alliances, which are going to end up accelerating your visibility. So Uranus in the 11th house is going to bring you new connections, new friends, new goals and gains. You can easily be involved with new forward-thinking groups, new networks. Again, very exalted in the 11th house because it's where he naturally lives. He's the modern ruler of Aquarius. And so he's very powerful in that space as well. So, the best way to strategize this year for you guys, Leo rising, is to collaborate with people who expand your worldview, who expand your the opportunity that you may have to actually reach more people, right? And I guess in a more micro way, collaborate with people who you have stuff in common with, and really build a more secure and grounded group of friends. This could certainly be the situation for you as well. But man, I love Uranus and Gemini in the 11th. This is so, so good. I have a feeling a lot of our Leo rising friends are going to be very influential in the tech industry, very influential in the area of writing, anything having to do with AI, anything having to do with advances in science and medicine. I just really do. A lot of people are going to be very, I even have a lot of clients who are Leo risings, and they are creating, or at least they have some really good ideas that they're trying to get patented. So very nice energy. And if you're not in that space, please don't feel bad. But it could just be you getting some new friend, you reestablishing a different a vision for yourself, for your future, and it being a good thing for you. So there's nothing to be afraid of here. Okay, my friend. So that's what I have for you. I hope that was kind of helpful, a little fun, hopefully, to listen to. And I'll see you guys next time. Bye-bye. Okay, our Virgo friends, so Virgo rising. So let me cue this up for you, and here we are. So, yeah, I mean, we have this, let me just move back a little bit. Nope. Okay. We have here we have Saturn and Neptune are at 0 degrees in that 8th house. And this is all about emotional and financial entanglements that have to be clarified. So you might have to get to the bottom of something having to do with that insurance payout, that inheritance situation, a debt situation, something to do with taxes, something to do with money coming to you through an investment, something having to do with your partner's money or a business partner's money. Or if you're in, the 8th house is if you're involved in any kind of legal situation, the 8th house is the financial part of it or the outcome, right? In that space. So, that's must be clarified. And they are going to be clarified, especially once everybody comes out of retrograde and all of these energies start moving and settling. There, as the year progresses, it will become more clear. I'm not going to say with every passing month, but every couple of months, it's just going to be like, okay, good. Now I feel like I have more information. Now, these energies here are sextiling Pluto in the 6th house, which is, the house of routines and your day-to-day work environment, as well as your health, right? So there's going to be some sort of transformation in this space having to do with, for some of you, your health. For some of you, your day-to-day routine is just looking hella different than it's been. So for a lot of you, it's just like what you were doing last year at this time, you're not going to be doing as the rest of the year rolls out. So I would not be surprised with this sextile coming from the 8th house. If there were some changes in your day-to-day responsibilities because of some sort of 8th house situation, Maybe your day-to-day looks different because you got married. Maybe your day-to-day looks different because you had a child. Maybe your day-to-day looks different because of a health situation as well. It could be that as well in the sixth house. But that sextile to Uranus in the ninth house, which is going to be there at least initially, we're going to be feeling this still. This Uranus energy in Taurus, we're still going to be feeling for the next year. Please don't be because a lot of people are like, oh yeah, when Uranus goes into Gemini, it's out of that Taurian energy. No, it's not. We have to understand the way the degrees work, right? So we're just going to be blending Gemini in a lot heavier with that Taurian energy for the next year, which is good. It has to happen like that with these heavy outer planets. If it was too quick, it would feel very even more disruptive than it is already. So this is about like some change, okay? So ninth house, new ninth house energies, right? Kind of closing up and solidifying over the next year. So this could be learning something new. A lot of you guys maybe have been doing that, right? Trying to take that, a class on some sort of technology because it's Uranus. Ninth house has to do with higher minded activities. So maybe you're doing that. Anything having to do with all ninth house things. So, religion, organized or otherwise, politics, law, legalities, governance, publishing, marketing, advertising, dealing with foreign cultures, dealing with foreign lands, right? Investing in foreign lands, right? Because we have that Taurus energy in there, at least considering, right? Really heavily considering that. Some of you may have even been considering moving. A lot, Uranus in the ninth house, a lot of times will motivate, obviously depends on what else is in your chart, but a lot of times it will motivate somebody to want to move. But for sure, your worldview, is shifting to make you feel more liberated. This is not a bad thing. This is a good thing. Please don't be scared of Uranus. He's revolutionary in all of that because he wants to liberate us, right? I mean, remember, the sky hasn't been like this since the late 1700s. And look at what happened. I mean, all of the liberating kind of energy that happened there, right? And it's not in a selfish way. It's it's going to be happening in more of a collective way. And no, I don't want to go down that rabbit hole, but it is for your betterment, okay? Now, once Uranus goes into the 10th house, your public role shifts, possibly going into some sort of advisory role, Gemini, possibly, maybe even going into a healing profession, right? Because you have that Hygeia in there as well, which is the S word of health. So wanting to go in that direction as well could certainly be that. Now, Saturn is very connected to career, and the eighth house does rule astrology. It does rule psychology, it rules detective work, it rules the whole practice of refinishing something. So, like flipping houses, refurbishing old furniture, bringing something back to life, kind of thing. Very good there. So this certainly could be something that you realize would be a good fit for you. But it could also be something a little more mundane, like you become like a mortgage broker because the eighth house is mortgages, or something in finance. Maybe you're more heavily connected to the world of finance. The eighth house is the stock market, it's investments. So you could have several things going on there, right? But versions of that. But your strategy, Virgo risings in particular for this year is to set energetic and financial boundaries for yourself, because you've been trying to do that, but there have been some like holes in the boundaries. You know what I mean? You've been saying for the past couple of years, I feel like, boundaries, man. I have to have boundaries. This is what I'm willing to put up with. This is not what I'm willing to put, all of that. But then there were like these little, like, they were porous boundaries. They're not going to be porous anymore. You have the energy to support you to not, to not be that. And by the way, you do have the vertex, and it is right now, it's within a 5-degree conjunction at the reading of this with Juno, which is in the fifth house of children, of falling in love affairs, romance, fifth house energy of having your own business, things like that. So there could be some sort of, long-term change, long-term adjustment going on in the life of having to do with a child, the vertex in Juno, just I'm just looking at this, thinking about my niece, um, who's giving birth any day now. She's actually due on Saturday. Looking at this in there, and I'm like, I don't think she's gonna wait till Saturday, but because Vertex with the Juno can actually bring birth in the fifth house as well, as you know, in addition to that Saturn and Neptune energy in the eighth. So anyway, but they could be some sort of shift having to do with children because of children. Um, some sort of, you know, change in direction because it's in Capricorn, and Capricorn is not only connected to our career, but very connected to our long-term direction as well. Right. So there's some sort of shift going on in there right now that I just feel like I want to mention it. But that is what I have for you guys, Virgo rising. I hope this was helpful. Thank you so much for hanging out with me, and I'll see you next time for next month's astrology. Bye-bye. Okay, so let's go on to our Libra friends, and let me cue you up here. I'm not stopping. I'm trying to go straight through. I never do this. Usually I pause, but I'm trying here. So Libra, for you guys this year, it's all about houses 7, 5, 8, and 9. Now, you have the Saturn and Neptune conjunction in the seventh house of relationships and marriage and contracts. Could be your boss or your bosses, anything like that. This is going to test your partnerships. I am not even going to try to dress this up. However, we do have a couple of sextiles going on here. So we have the sextile with Pluto in the fifth house. So remember, sextiles are very supportive if we allow them to be. And what is the fifth house? It's our children, it's our relationships, it's our joy, our happiness, having our own business, taking a chance on things, going on vacations. It's very creative. It's very creative. And so while there could be tests to the partnership, there is some sort of beautiful something happening in this fifth house, be it connected to children or a creative project or some sort of business opportunity. But with with this sextile to the fifth, this is very like creative and or romantic situation intensifies. Some sort of uh situation having to do with children intensifies, right? And we have the sextile to the to this Uranian energy in Taurus, and even though it's not, you know, two full houses away, looking at the degrees, yes, these are sextile, and he's still going to be in this Taurus energy through April. But guys, his energy is still going to be remaining in a sextile and still going to be speaking to the Taurus energy for the next year, right? Because of the degrees that he's going to be in. So yes, he's going to be in Gemini, but he's not forgetting about Taurus. He's still going to be blending whatever he needed to finish up in that Taurus energy and that Gemini energy, okay? So, you know, this is very much about joint finances changing. You know, that eighth house has to do with joint finances. It has to do with sex and intimacy and other people's money, and it has to do with insurance payouts and inheritance and taxes and debt and all of that. There's some sort of change going on there, right? But because it's sextile to the seventh house, it's something that's joint. So if you're not married, this could certainly be a business situation. This could certainly be also joining forces, right? Because it's literally what you do if you're battling an illness, joining forces with some sort of new medical team, whatever it is. But then we also have Uranus moving into the ninth house, right? Come April, by the beginning of May, he's going to be like settled in Gemini, but he's still going to be speaking to the Taurian energy. And this is where partnerships are going to be tied to travel, to education, to publishing, right? Because we're still in that partnership energy, but now it's not blending with the ninth house, having to do with you know, some of you could be deciding to get married. Some of you could be deciding to get divorced. Some of you could be deciding to go back to church together, to go to therapy, to pray together. Some of you may be deciding to go on a long distance trip, you know, with a partner. Some of you may be partnering up with somebody and getting involved in some sort of campaign where you're marketing, you're advertising, there's publishing, there's editing, there's writing, there's negotiating going on, right? But these, keep in mind, these are sextiles to this. So this is a very real kind of energy. It's very practical. Don't project fantasies onto your partner, whether it's your intimate partner, your husband or wife, somebody who you're very seriously involved with, your boss or bosses, any business partner, anything like that. Because there's going to be this, and I want to just be honest with you guys, there will be like a reality check that ends up manifesting for you that's actually going to be really, really helpful, really helpful. And it's gonna create a situation where you're processing the reality of your current situation, how you would really like things to be, but then realizing in order for that to be your reality, what would have to take place. And so some of you, you're going to get in touch with where you may be over idealized, or you just idealize a particular situation. Now, I do want to say that we do have the vertex, and it's sitting right in the middle of the seventh house for you guys. And that's where, again, something is closing. And so why this is important is because whatever energy is in there with it is really going to be a thing, right? We have the serious energy where you're really thinking big for yourself, right? You don't want to be hurt. You don't want to feel vulnerable. You're in this state of like, is this seventh house thing even going to take me the long term? Having to do with that marriage, that work opportunity. Seventh house is also your energetic output at work. Some of you may be like, I don't want this to be my day-to-day anymore. I want to do something different at work. Or some of you may even be like, I want to change doctors right now. I feel like I need to change my medical team. If you're dealing with any sort of challenge in that area. But the vertex is about shutting a door because it's no longer serving you. Like the way that it's been, it cannot be that way anymore. So if you're going to work out your marriage or your job or whatever, however this is manifesting for you in that seventh house, there's got to be this understanding that you can't go back. This is very future focused, very, very future focused. And especially with that Jupiter energy in the 10th house, Jupiter and Uranus are very focused on the future. You might not feel like you have all the answers now because Jupiter's still retrograde until March 10th, but you're feeling the whispers of what needs to happen. And a lot of you may be keeping it very on the down low. You might be just kind of collecting information where you're trying to figure out the best strategy for you regarding that connection, that seventh house connection. Okay, my friends, but the last thing that you want to do is you don't want to project how you think things should be, right? Saying, marriage partner, you should be doing more. You should make more money. You should communicate more. You should do fill in the blank more. Or, boss, you're asking all these things of me and that it just doesn't feel right, whatever it is. Because my idealized occupation would look like this, right? Getting rid of that, getting super real. That's how you're going to have a super productive year because you have so much good energy on your side this year. You just really do. So you don't want to squander it by getting caught up in any sort of like idealizing or fantasizing a situation that maybe is not very practical for you to manifest right now. Hopefully that makes sense. And guys, this is a good thing, right? It's a good thing. All right, I'll see you guys next time. Bye-bye. Okay, Scorpio, you guys are up next. I'm trying to do a straight run through. So I'm going to bring you up as your rising sign here. We have, here we go. Saturn and Neptune are in your sixth house, and this is like health and work aligned with purpose. And that's just going to be the key to this entire transit for you. But it's not working alone. It's got the sextile going on. And the sextile to Pluto, which is your modern ruler, in the fourth house, your home life transforms. So for some of you, this could be someone moving in, someone moving out, you selling your home, you buying a home, you creating some sort of addition. Maybe you're not doing any of those things. And the fourth house, this is manifesting, having to do with your emotional stability. Right? But there's transformation having to do with your emotional stability, having to do with your future. You have to. This is like something you have to do. Now we have the sextiling Uranus in the seventh, which, up to this point, right? He's been in there for a while and we're finishing it up. Now, even though he's going into Gemini in April and he's going to be very much in Gemini, he's going to be very early in the degrees this whole year. So he's still going to be connecting with this Taurian energy in the seventh house. So I don't want you to think he gets out of the seventh house of marriage and partnership. Or your bosses, however it's going to be manifesting for you, and it's like done. Now it's in the eighth house and like seventh house is done. The energy is going to shift, but it's still going to be communicating, right, for the next year. Okay. So really looking at with that Uranus in the seventh, it's been you being involved in some kind of non-traditional type of relationships, non-traditional marriage or something a little out of the box, something a little different. Anything like that. Now with that North Node in the fifth house, being presented with a situation that might have been pretty uncomfortable and you having the question posed to you, am I sacrificing my own joy and happiness to be in this thing? Am I self-sabotaging myself by being in this thing? And Uranus is answering this question now that he is so late in that last decan. Well, once he goes into that eighth house, shared resources get disrupted. A sex and intimacy get disrupted. Right? Remember, he's disruptive. And what's the eighth house? Shared resources, sex and intimacy, other people's money. Could be the house of divorce, could be the house of absolute commitment. Remember, it's endings and beginnings, the eighth house, right? It's all about you. That's where you guys live. Having to do with mastery, having to do with anxiety as well, right? But it's very connected to this idea of control. Now, I want you to just, take a deep breath with this. Because Uranus in the third house, Uranus in Gemini, Gemini is the landlord of the third house, but Uranus in Gemini in the eighth house can make you hella nervous. It can make you very like anxious and understand that it's that transit, right? So it could feel disruptive there. So you want to, in order to circumvent that, right? Your strategy should be to build routines that support your emotional truth or the emotional truth of a situation. The more that you could do that and stay away from any sort of like fantasy or staying away from, trying to control a situation that you really don't have the power to fully control. Do you know what I mean? Because the eighth house is always someone else in that space with us. We're not in the eighth house alone. It's always something else, even if it's a past memory that we haven't healed yet. Could be a partner, could be a business partner, could be an intimate partner. It could be a person that we're dealing with having to do with debt, having to do with finances. It could be a bank having to do with a mortgage, anything like that. You understand? So Uranus is always about liberating us. And so he's going to want to liberate you. But on the path to liberation, it could feel a little rocky. And just understand that that's part of the process. Totally on brand. You're going to feel nervous, but don't allow yourself to get sucked down that rabbit hole. You're going to be okay. You're going to be fine, right? But Uranus is a disruptive energy in a house that's already endings and beginnings. There's not a lot of stability in the eighth house to begin with, right? So I'm not saying this in any way to be like nervous, because let me tell you, some really good stuff can happen, especially depending on what goes on in your chart. I mean, the eighth house could be like with Uranus, sudden inheritance, sudden your debt is paid off. You suddenly develop this amazing intimate relationship with somebody. Something suddenly changes. But we never really know, guys. Keeping it real with Uranus, he's the wild child. He's a wild child. We just don't know. But whatever it is, regardless of how uncomfortable we might think it is in the moment, understand that in some way it's meant to ultimately liberate us, even if we don't understand it to be that in the moment, right? But it's liberating you, and it's really connecting you to some sort of emotional truth that's just been really, really difficult for you to completely absorb, up to this point. So that is what I have for your little extra information for this month, Scorpio. I hope this was helpful in some way. I'll see you guys next time when we talk about next month's astrology. Thanks for hanging with me. See you then. Bye-bye. Okay, Sagittarius, you guys are up next. I'm going through all of the signs, right, without taking a break here. So houses 5, 3, 6, and 7 are going to be very important for you this year. And the Saturn and Neptune in your fifth house, things get serious, right? Whenever Saturn is in a space. So the fifth house, this could be creative work. Creative work gets serious. Something having to do with your children gets serious. Falling in love, love affairs, romance gets serious. A business opportunity get serious, right? Because the fifth house is very entrepreneurial energy, right? Especially in Aries, which is like fresh path, new perspective. But there could be some sort of recognition of some sort of, new phase of life that one of your children are going through. Or you're realizing they might need you, and you might have it manifest as a couple of those things at the same time. We do have the sextile, though, going on with Pluto in the third house, and your voice becomes powerful. Third house is our voice, it's our writing, it's how we communicate. It will siblings, extended family, your neighbor, your neighborhood, your neighbors. Some of you might be thinking about moving. Some of you might be doing something with a sibling. There might be something that changes in the life of a sibling. But remember, this isn't a sextile, so it's very supportive. Okay, this is a supportive kind of energy. So it's very good because your voice is going to be powerful. It's very interesting because a lot of Sagittarian energies have been going through this situation in the past year where a lot of the Sag risings that I've been working with feel like their voice is being tested, their comments are being tested, like the ease that used to be there is not there as effectively, right? And so there was a lot of learning, right, that's been going on when it comes to communication, when it comes to writing, when it comes to speaking, when it comes to connecting with people, when it comes to realizations about siblings and extended family, realizations about where it is that you live, is that Pluto does bring a lot of realizations, right? And now with this sextile, that voice that you have that maybe wasn't so understood is now just going to become a lot more powerful. And we have the sextile in the other direction to Uranus in the sixth house. And this is where work habits change. Something with your health changes. Your daily responsibilities change. That is that sixth house energy, right? Taking care of yourself mentally, physically, emotionally. Now we're at the tail end of that, right? But it's still going to be trailing into that seventh house throughout the rest of the year. So it's not like Uranus goes into Gemini and no more Taurus at all. It doesn't work like that because in astrology, we really do, we respect the degrees. So even when Uranus moves into Gemini, we're still going to be feeling it in like 21 degrees all the way through the 29 degree in Taurus, right? Still going to be feeling it for that first year, right? So once it moves into that seventh house, this is where sudden relationship developments are going to be going on. Some of you are going to be getting married. Some of you may get a divorce. There might be neither of those things, and there might be something very profound going on in the life of a partner. If your partner is Gemini, that might be very strong, and he's sort of Geminian quality. So having to do like seventh house is contracts. Gemini has to do with writing, right? So it could be something like that. You could connect when it comes to some sort of contract, some sort of having to do with employment or some sort of opportunity. Uranus in the seventh could also have you realizing that what you do day to day in your job, like your forward facing contribution in your work, needs to change. You want to do something different. Maybe you want to do something connected to the internet, right? Because your Uranus does rule technology, anything having to do with the tech sector, anything having to do with something that's like out of the box and different. Can certainly happen, but it's a liberating. Remember, Uranus is supposed to be a liberating energy. Now we do have it working with that sextile in the fifth house. So there could be some sort of creative project that you're getting out there that you're going to end up getting some sort of contract for, something to that effect, right? But the best strategy for you guys during this year when it comes to this particular dynamic is you want to treat creativity like a straight up vocation. This is not you being creative just to be creative, or you being creative just for like the shits and giggles and fun. It's like your vocation to be creative. So really want you to focus on that, very important. And I have to say that you have Chiron in the fifth, and Chiron in the fifth, you have Eris, which is the brightest star. You have Ceres in there, very nicely sandwiched in with that Chiron energy. It's like your creativity is going to be healing for you. Connection to children are going to be healing for you. Beautiful, right? Stick close to the fifth house, right? Everything that I said that the fifth house can mean. These are general, obviously, general readings, but you want to treat that creativity like a vocation, and you want to take these things seriously. Even circumstances that are going on in the lives of your children as well. You want to make sure that you're exercising healthy boundaries. Very important there. You don't want to burn any bridges or push yourself into something a little too much, but that might be going on as well. So that's what I have for you, Sag. I hope that was helpful in some way. See you guys next time when we talk about next month. Bye-bye. Okay, so Capricorn, you guys are up next. I'm trying to do it straight run through without taking any breaks. So Capricorn risings, yay. Okay, this is for us. So houses 4, 2, 5, and 6. Very important for us this year. So that's Saturn and Neptune energy, which is happening in the 4th house, redefining home and emotional foundations, very deep energy. If you're going through your Saturn return, like I just started mine as well. This is going to be felt very, very deeply, okay? But we have this Pluto transit, this Pluto sextile, which is quite nice in the 2nd house. And this is where income can transform, your sense of self can transform. Anything connected to your possessions, anything connected to your ability to feel more secure. Now, this is a sextile. This is good. So when I say transform, you're like, hold on, woman, that could be a bad thing. It's like, nope, this is going to be a good thing. I so want you guys to stay open to the energy, because then we have the sextile on the other side to that Uranian energy in the 5th, finishing up in the 5th. And this is where, once and for all, Capricorn, creative risk, whatever you're doing creative that's connected to anything that's creative. And there could be several narratives going on at once having to do with this Uranus in the 5th. Uranus is about change and transformation, very revolutionary energy. It's in the last decan of the 5th house. Maybe something's going on that's different with your children. Maybe your children are graduating and they're moving out, or they're getting married, or they're having a child, or there's some sort of big change in the life of your child, while at the same time, you have something going on maybe in your own business, or where you are tapping into this idea of creativity. It's time to take a creative risk this year. This is a good year to take it, whatever that means for you. Now, Taurus is, connected to money. Gemini is connected to teaching and writing. So making money, as a teacher, as a writer, as anything that is connected to that. Okay. Taking that creative risk, though, I don't want you to think, oh my gosh, if I don't take it by the end of April, I'm not going to have a chance to do it, before Uranus goes into Gemini. Okay, hold on. No, he's still going to be speaking to Taurus the entire year. Actually, it's even better if you're thinking about doing anything having to do with teaching, having to do with writing, having to do with the internet, doing those things online, anything connected to that. It's actually going to be better while Uranus is in the early stages of Gemini, because he's still blending that Taurian stability, that Taurian, idea of stability and money, right, into that space. But once he goes into the 6th house, it's also going to be very much like your work routine is going to shift radically. For a lot of us, we have to look at what might be going on with our health. Now, it's in Gemini. So Gemini rules our hands, our arms, our lungs. Sixth house is our health, mental, physical, emotional. Gemini also is very connected to our mental processing and the way, very connected to our voice and the way we connect. So Uranus is in there revolutionizing things. This is the thing. I mentioned health. You're going to be fine. But how this will likely show up is you're going to feel like you're living differently within your body. And I'm saying this very generally because I don't know what's going on in your chart. But you may find that by this time next year, you're just living differently in your own body. Okay. Maybe you're eating differently. Maybe you're exercising differently, whatever it means for you, that. But I do feel like for a lot of you, especially with the Saturn in the fourth house, Saturn's very connected to work. So like working from home, in technology, having something to do with writing, creating, getting something out there to the world, very future focused, really figuring something out there. So it's really quite nice. Now, the strategy that you have got to really bite into and not let go of this year is you have to invest in your emotional security. This is going to be the most important thing for you. It just is. Because of the way this Pluto energy is now going deeper into the second house, it just is. And this is going to be a very important thing because wherever Pluto is, he wants us to feel in control. And the tricky part is we can't ask anyone to fill that cup for us. We have to fill it. So focusing on what that means. Now, that doesn't mean that maybe you can't work out something with somebody who can help you feel more secure, but you have to focus on your emotional security this year. Very important that you feel safe and grounded in your relationships, that you feel safe and grounded as far as having what you need. Really letting this year be very defining in that way, because you have the vertex here in Leo in the eighth house. Just at the beginning of this transit, the vertex moves pretty quickly. But having this happen in there today, that means like, what is the eighth house? It's other people's money. It's this reliance on other. It's, the vertex in there makes us want to get rid of debt. Makes us want to invest, makes us want to, end something that's connected to that eighth house. Again, whether it's like reliance on somebody else's money or waiting for that insurance policy to come in or whatever, or even maybe finally the insurance thing finally settling and the vertex could be, okay, that's finally done, right? But something in that eighth house, money coming to you, is some sort of door closing, but it's not like that opportunity, door shut. It's not like that. It's more of and this is a very psychological placement, by the way. It's more about, wanting to have more agency, over your life, which Uranus in the sixth house can certainly create that kind of a feeling, because the sixth house is very connected to our day-to-day experiences or day-to-day responsibilities. And Uranus is very much about doing something different, being able to get in front of something and create something great, so hopefully it's a motivating energy for you, because it should be. It should be. So that is what I have for you, Capricorn. I hope this was helpful in some way. See you guys next time. Bye-bye. Okay, Aquarius. Thank you so much for hanging out with me. So for you guys, houses 3, 1, 4, and 5. So you have two angular houses in there, house 1 and 4, that are going to be pushing some change here, having to do with your path, having to do with where you live, your emotional security, and the Saturn and Neptune, which is happening in your third house. And this is very connected to this idea of disciplined communication. What I mean by that is, well, let me just share with you the fact that as a Capricorn rising, I've had Saturn and Neptune in my third, and I was able to dig deeper into things, but I felt a little more scattered than I normally do, right? Than I normally do. As a Gemini sixth house sun, so I have, Mercury rules my sun and rules the house placement of my sun in that Virgo energy, and a Capricorn rising. A lot of earth air. So you know, I always was like, pick things up pretty quickly. And I found that while I understood things during this transit, I was able to go deeper for sure. Saturn's in there. I felt like I would have to read things over again. Like I'm just talking about a very practical, um, a very practical manifestation of it. Um, but remember that Neptune is very foggy, very illusory, very connected to fantasy. And Saturn's like, nope, you have to come down here, come down into focus. So there could be some, you know, reality checks. I mean, when I had mine go this recent transit, major reality checks when it came to my siblings. And a lot of you know, I lost two siblings, and that was because of other transits I had. I don't want you to think that that's what that means, but yeah, I mean, I lost two siblings. I realized one of my siblings was not a just not a good person, and that was really difficult to, you know, but I could not see it. And it was a weird, quiet kind of acceptance. There was no drama. I actually felt quite at peace with it and just kind of went through it. Even my one sibling who I realized she's not who I thought she was all these years, I wasn't angry. I still loved her. I forgive her, but I very easily was like, you scare me, and I don't want you to be in my life because of that, you know. I love you, but you know, so again, these are very practical manifestations, you know, but on the other hand, like I got really close with one of my other siblings, you know, closer than we've been in years. And you know, seeing his pure heart, you know, the older we get becomes more pure, and being so grateful for that. So just that's just having to do with that. But like talk about eyes wide open when Saturn is in Neptune. It's very so it's not only siblings, it's extended family, it's your neighbors, it's your neighborhood, it's your old friends. It also has to do with all modes of communication. It has to do with your voice as well. All right. So very, very very important for you to use your voice intentionally this year. Very, very important. Now, having to do with the sextile to Pluto, which is happening in your first house, of course, this is all about personal rebirth. I mean, you know this terrain super, super well. And this is something because Uranus rules your chart. Uranus is your chart ruler, and um, it's a your life's just going to be changing exponentially, particularly over the next 5 years. And this sextile is just such a lovely kickoff to it. It really, I mean, you've been going through the changes little at a time. You know, when maybe like you got the new job, maybe 6, 12 months ago, or you decided to move in with that person, or you decided to get married, you decided to have a child, you know, like over time, where it feels kind of slow, right? Things are going to start speeding up a little bit. They just are because it's also working. It's this sextile that's speaking to your Pluto is also out of the other side of their mouth, having a conversation with Uranus in the fourth house, and then of course in the fifth house. So still going to be feeling this Taurus energy. The Uranus in Taurus, even though it goes to Gemini in April, we're still going to be feeling it the next year because of the low degrees that he's going to be in that fifth house energy. So in that fourth house, this idea of, you know, and a lot of you have been probably feeling this, you know, this idea of like home instability. Now, it doesn't necessarily mean that you don't live in the same place, but maybe there was some sort of instability that went on, maybe because of a health situation or somebody had to move, or you're living here, you're living there. It doesn't necessarily have to be a bad thing or a good thing, but just not feeling like, okay, everything is like fine and peaceful. You know, there's something, right? That was going on, right? That kind of instability. No, it could have just been something as basic as you just realizing that in your life, you just don't feel very emotionally secure. Could have been that as well, right? Because Uranus was pushing and pulling you to figure out if you felt that way, why do you feel that way, right? But now he's going to be going into that beautiful fifth house energy which is nothing less than an absolute creative renaissance for you guys. I love this energy for you. Uranus in the fifth in Gemini has you guys writing books, has you guys making babies. So be careful if you don't want to do that. Has you guys starting your own business, has you guys falling in love, love affairs, romance, going on fabulous vacations, doing things that just make you flippin' happy. This is the house of joy. And he just wants to liberate you. Now, this doesn't mean, but I want to tell you, like, if you're in a really toxic relationship, Uranus going into the fifth, he might pull that out from under your feet for your own good. If you're in something that you need to be liberated from, especially if you have a really hard time liberating yourself from it, he's going to do it for you. And you're going to be so much happier and grateful for it on the other side. So use your voice intentionally. Don't be afraid to write your stuff down. Create, 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 right? Because with these positions, really nice. Because remember, Uranus has to do with like the masses, energetically getting something out there. Uranus was technology. The fifth house, it was creative energy. So which is pretty interesting. I mean, this is because Uranus up to this point is out of the box, different, you guys are funky and I love Aquarius energy because it's just so unique. I always say that, know where your Aquarius is and love it because it's where your most unique self. But there's something going on here, and I'm saying this with your axis because they said the same thing with to Leo. Okay, because you guys are the ascendant and descending from each other. Aquarius and Leo energies, I'm telling you, are going to be, risings especially, are going to be, to a lesser degree, sun and moon. But still, the forward thinkers. Technology advances in science, in medicine, speaking in a certain way to the collective, right? Being able to make some transformative assertions where people are really listening to you. But again, you're using your voice intentionally. Okay. So that is what I have for you guys. Looks pretty good to me. Very exciting, good stuff. All right, Aquarius, until next time, you guys take care. Thanks for hanging with me. Okay, Pisces, last one through. I've been trying to like not pause, taking any pauses here, trying to go straight through. But our Pisces rising friends for this next year, second house, 12th house, third house, fourth house, are big for you. So those are a lot of what we call northern houses, even though it's the bottom of your chart, we call it the north. So there's a lot of internal stuff going on. So your values with this Saturn and Neptune conjunction, getting so real in that second house. It just is. I mean, when it comes to your money, when it comes to what it means for you to be secure and have a strong foundation, getting very, very real, just in general. Now, we do have the sextile to Pluto in the 12th, and this is all very connected to deep psychological purging, getting things out, really rethinking your future in the 12th house. Over the course of the next year, you may even be a little quiet about it, what it is that you actually want to bring. Now, Pluto in Aquarius in the 12th can have you doing something very out of the box, very different as well for the collective. Maybe you're starting to study tarot, or you're studying Reiki or meditation or crystals. These are all very 12th house things. Maybe you're doing something having to do with the nursing. Maybe you're deciding to get into medicine or advance yourself in the area of technology in some way, but you're going to be working more like behind the scenes. There's a very nice energy for that as well. Because with that sextile to that Uranus, right? That's happening at 27 degrees. Remember, Uranus in Taurus is changing into Gemini in April, but it's still going to be within a very connected communicative orb to Taurus for the whole rest of the year. So it's not like out of Taurus, goodbye, goodbye, all about Gemini. It's not going to be that for at least another year. So we're going to be blending these energies, right? So that sextile in the third has to do with new ideas, right? Writing, your voice, communicating, getting something out there, right? And so going into the fourth house at Uranus energy, home environment shift. So maybe you're starting to work from home, you're working online, or you're doing some sort of Uranus could just simply mean change, just change, right? Some sort of revolutionary change in the fourth house could have you moving, or there could be some sort of change within the home and family dynamic, right? That home and family dynamic could be changing as well. There could be some sort of shift in the life of your siblings, you know, because third house, right? For the you have Gemini, which is siblings and extended family in the fourth house, actually, of your first family. So very connected, right, to that home environment. There could be something very shocking that happens in that home environment as well. But there's something about the home environment, something very connected to your emotional security that's going to be shifting. Okay. We can never say exactly what when Uranus is we're dealing with Uranus, but I will say that the vertex is in Libra, in Virgo rather, in your seventh house at the time of this reading. So the energy is being established moving forward with that vertex in Virgo in the seventh. Seventh house has to do with your marriage. It has to do with contracts. Vertex is closing the door on something. Now, this doesn't mean that you're getting divorced. It doesn't mean that you're getting married, but it can mean that you're looking at something through a different lens, that the way the dynamic has been existing up to this point can no longer be. So if that's not the way that it manifests for you, maybe your marriage is fine, your relationship is fine, it's nothing to do with that. Maybe it has to do with your boss or your bosses, or maybe everything's fine with them, but you're realizing that you want to make some changes in your everyday energetic output when it comes to work, right? But there's some sort of change, some sort of door closing there. There could also be like an ending of some sort of situation that's going on with somebody that you're entangled in a legal situation with, because seventh house is an individual who we're in a legal entanglement with. But you really want to make sure this entire year, like your strategy this year, having to do with just these energies that we're talking about, is you want to make sure that you're aligning your finances with your soul's values, not anybody else's, not a partner's, not a bit anybody else, but you have to be very in alignment with how you make your money and what it is that you're looking to accomplish, right? It's almost very Cancerian, because Cancers are very like that, right? Where they can't do a job just to do it. Generally speaking, Pisces risings can. It's like, look, if I need the money, I'm going to do it, whatever. This year, that's going to bother you. You want to make sure that you're aligning your finances with this, because this is your house of finances, right? And Neptune is all about illusion, and Saturn is like, I don't want any more illusion. We have to get serious about this now, right? And so we have these two sextiles, though, helping you out with it. So that is what I have for you guys. I hope that was helpful, right? Now, with that, I'm actually just going to keep going here. And I want to talk about something called sect. In astrology, it's SECT. I get a lot of questions about this. It's really not very difficult to explain. So I'm going to take a moment to explain this. A day sect versus night sect planet. So a sect is about whether your chart is a day chart, diurnal, or nocturnal, which would be a night chart. And so this means like any planets that are exalted, or they work more constructively during the day. If you were born after sunrise and before sunset, the sun, Jupiter, and Saturn are going to be a lot more helpful and constructive for you in your chart. Saturn in particular becomes a lot more principled, a lot more constructive, very boundary setting, rather than like heavy or depressive in a day chart. he could be those things in a night chart, but in a day chart, he's a lot more constructive, right? Now, a nocturnal night chart, right? The planets that are exalted there that work a lot more constructively would be the moon, as well as Venus and Mars. Mars tends to be pretty volatile in a day chart because it just prefers to be part of the night team and not the day team, right? So when you look at your chart, your birth chart, first of all, see what time were you born, right? Are you a day chart or a night chart? And then look at where is, your moon, your Venus, and your Mars. So if you have a night chart, that moon and Venus and Mars just being there, this is not connected to any aspects, which we're going to talk about in a minute. They're nicely positioned. Okay, they're positively positioned. Okay, hopefully that makes sense. Now Mercury, when we're talking about placements, Mercury is a little bit of a wild card. He's a morning star rising before the sun, part of the day sect, right? So you have to look at, generally speaking, right? Mercury can be an evening star, sets after the sun in the night sect. So looking at what part of the chart. So if Mercury is in houses, I want to say like 1 through 6, that would be more of like a morning, right? So he would be a day sec. Not that it really matters, too much. And then, if he lands in houses like 7 through 12, it's a little more of the evening. But you have to look at where your Mercury is. I'm really trying to simplify it very much, but I don't want you to worry too much about your Mercury too much, right? Having to do with this. But it's important more to understand what it means to be in dignity. Okay. And in whole sign, right, astrology, which is what I do, the house corresponds to the natural sign. Whatever joy or debilitated environment, we have to understand how it plays out in each sign and in each house, right? So the sun is very happy in the 9th house, and he's very happy in Sagittarius. He's in fall in the 3rd house and can be in fall tangentially in the sign of Gemini. The sun thrives very much so where meaning, purpose, and truth-seeking live, right? So to understand that about your chart, I mean, this just gives you an extra layer to really understand. What about all the other houses, right? A lot of times people are like, what about all the other houses? Well, it just is what it is. We're just going to talk today about where it means to be exalted and where there's some debilitation. And I'm going to explain what all that means, but let's talk about the moon. The moon is very joyful in the 3rd house, very joyful in the sign of Gemini, is in fall in the 9th house, and is actually in fall in Sagittarius. So the moon prefers familiarity, routines, stories, not any kind of abstract belief system. That's, not what the moon loves, okay? Mercury is at his best in the 1st house or Aries, and he is in fall, he's his weakest in the 7th house or in Libra, right? And so Mercury rules like, thought processing and communication. And the 7th house Libra energy always has like analysis paralysis. It doesn't mean they can't communicate and they can't think. It's just a little hard to be more direct and decided. But Mercury does like autonomy of perception and not having to negotiate identity through others or through what other people might want, needing to consider that, at all times. That's why that 7th house or that Libra energy for Mercury is he's debilitated there. Now, Venus is very joyful, very happy and exalted in the 5th house and or Leo, but she is in fall in the 11th house and or Aquarius. So Venus prefers intimacy over collectives, right? So that's where she's her best and her not strongest, right? Now, when it comes to Mars, Mars finds the greatest joy being in the 6th house, right? It's exercise, it's taking care of ourselves. and he loves to be in Virgo. He is in fall in the 12th house and in Pisces, right? Because Mars likes visible struggle, not hidden enemies or suppressed anger, which is very 12th house, which is very Piscean, right? So he doesn't like those things. He's not comfortable there. Now, Jupiter is its most joyful in the 11th house and or in the sign of Aquarius, and he's in fall, does not love being in the 5th house and or Leo. Just does not love it. Now we have Saturn. Saturn is happiest in the 12th house and or the sign of Pisces, and he's in fall in power in the 6th house and or Virgo. Okay, Saturn much prefers solitude and contemplation over any kind of busy obligation, and that 6th house is very much about busy obligations, right? And I do get a lot of questions, about Uranus and Neptune and Pluto, like, do they have a sect? And the short answer I do want to say is no, right? Classically, only the 7 visible planets, really, that would be the Sun, Moon, Mercury, Venus, Mars, Jupiter, and Saturn. But because a sect is based on visibility relative to the horizon, whether it's day or night, the ancients couldn't really see, right? And people who came up with ancient astrology and studied, and our foremothers and our forefathers, they couldn't really see Uranus and Neptune and Pluto. So they weren't assigned, that nature in the original system, but from a very practical perspective, most of us astrologers do it with polarity, right? So if we kind of look at the idea of temperament and affinity with traditional rulers and expression style, objective versus subjective, we kind of have a loosey-goosey kind of framework that we could use. So Uranus is very day leaning, right? It's very day leaning because Uranus shares an affinity with Saturn, which is all about structures and system, but destabilizes them, right? He's about externalized change and objective disruption, and he's very future oriented, as I mentioned before. He's very rational, he's very systemic, right? Behaves a lot more coherently in day charts. So if you have a day chart, he's going to be a lot more agreeable. He's going to be a lot more agreeable if he's in an angular house, 1, 4, 7, or 10, especially the public houses. Anything on the top. Public houses would be mostly 10, to a lesser degree, 9 and 11 as well. Any sort of social systemic environment. So, he acts as more of like a liberator than like a chaos machine, right? If you have a day chart, right? Just to put it in basic language. Now, Neptune, a little more night leaning. He's a little more nocturnal life because he dissolves boundaries. He's all about internalizing experiences. He's very connected to this idea of emotional permeability, very connected to the subconscious. He's very symbolic. He's very dream state processing, So he's a lot more comfortable at night, right? I mean, he will sleep too. Neptune is the modern ruler of Pisces, and Pisces will sleep. 12th house energy will sleep. So very, very beautifully aspect. If you have a night chart or you have your Neptune in a water house, especially for 8-12, which are the water houses, any sort of private or contemplative space as well, which is very Pisces. I guess all the water is very contemplative, very emotional. Yeah, but he's very strong in water. He's very strong in water. So, those are really like nice energies here. Pluto is very night leaning as well, of course. I think we could all figure that out anyway, because Pluto has a darkness about him. He's all about like, deep psychology and underworld processing and fusion and elimination and this whole idea of internal power restructuring and trying to control and all that stuff. So Pluto tends to function through surrender, through crisis, through metamorphosis, right? So if you have a night chart, though, Pluto behaves a lot more nicely for you if you happen to have a night chart, okay? Which is quite nice, right? So that just happens to be a question I get a lot of, about the planets and where do they love to be the best. But anyway, guys, I'm going to wrap it up here. It was nice hanging out with you guys, and I'll see you probably next week to discuss next month's astrology. But until then, I hope you guys take care. I hope you guys stay healthy, and I'll see you next time. Bye bye.